Thank you for that wonderful introduction. All right, learn how to use this first. Great, thanks all for coming. I'm very excited to talk about soil health today, and it's really one of our focuses as a genetic testing company. So, our focus is really to support a lot of the efforts to improve soil health around the world by enabling quantitation, first and foremost, of the soil biology at scale. And so what that means for us if you think about, the movement of human genetics from academia and research into, genetic testing, direct consumer testing, that's sort of the set of challenges that we're tackling for microbiomes. And our vision is really to enable accessible and affordable soil biology testing for farmers. And the reason why we do that is because, building soil health is really a long-term effort. It's a long-term challenge, and like all long-term goals, like, relatable ones like weight loss and improving heart health, the key to influencing behavioral change is really being able to show those incremental measurements, because you really don't see the effects of these daily actions until many, many years later. And so when it comes to the, building the soil community, the work that you do put into the soil today has almost an immediate effect many times in the actual soil community, but you don't see those yield increases until a couple seasons later or 5 to 10 years later. But then they're very long lasting. And so in order to inform sort of treatments, recommendations, what we can do to convince a farmer to take actions, apply products, apply treatments, cover cropping and practices to improve their soil health, being able to measure it is critical for is key. And so it's a huge challenge that obviously involves a community effort by all of you here today, and even just measuring the microbiome at production scale turns out to be a huge challenge as well. And so we actually have an incredible team of interdisciplinary and data scientists, ecology, microbial-ecologists, microbiome scientists, engineers to deploy these at scale. Molecular biology, we do everything in-house from sample receipt to the reporting. And then customer associates who really work with our customers to see how we can deliver insights to enable action to increase their yields and really translate those numbers, the biological numbers, into dollars. And my co-founder, Purnima, who is on the top left here, is also here today. So it's a really quick presentation. I'm just going to cover the tip of the iceberg. Please come find us afterwards and talk to us. We've done many, many interesting use cases with our customers so far. So when it comes to soil health of, and this was mentioned earlier by, Dr. Honeycutt as well, there's chemical aspects, there's physical aspects, and that's all very, very important to build the structure to grow a plant, but there's also the biological aspect. And really the ways of measuring that biological aspect of soil health has been very limited to farmers. And so we're just gonna focus on the biology for this presentation. Now, when it comes to the biology, it really is a community. There are billions of organisms in every teaspoon of soils. There are many diverse species. Some look very, very similar to others, a range of functions to support plant health. So at Trace Genomics, one of our leading principles is to respect this complexity, but also realizing that it's incredibly important. So we need to respect the complexity, but also gather the low-hanging fruit and the things that we can measure to try to influence action. So some of the questions that our customers come to us for and that they want to measure are, what is the effect of composting? I know I've cover cropped a field for a decade. I think it's very healthy, but how do I show the effects of the microbes, the fungi in that field? There are a lot of products on the market, many of which are promising to promote growth of microbes, compost teas, and so forth. Are they really working on my soil? Sometimes they work in one soil and not another. We're just trying to figure out why. And so really showing a farmer that is working on their farm is a critical first step. Number of other questions that we're exploring with field trials, and I'm not going to go into today, but we're enabling all of this with an easy testing kit. So our kit is shipped out to the grower or the agronomist, and they do the sample. It comes with the tubes and the solutions. It makes it super easy. They ship it back to us. And then in-house, we perform all of the extraction. So extracting the microbes from an unbiased perspective, capturing both fungal and bacterial communities. And what we're really focused on is delivering the microbiome test, not just as a microbiome test, but rather as a diagnostic. We started as a diagnostic company using microbiome and genetic testing, and we quickly realized that there's a ton of soil health indicators that we could surface to farmers. But what we've done actually, incidentally, by starting as a diagnostic company is building a molecular stack to really be able to quantitate these microbes. So we've shown very linear quantitation for microbes and also species specificity for the disease-causing microbes. And that's important for a lot of our models, as I'll go into later. And then finally, we do the analytics. So understanding what's in there, the function, the microbes, but then the interpretation is a big piece. How do we use that insight and then recommend actionable interventions? So soil health, we look at it from two sides of the same coin, disease and health. On the left side, you see some diseases, some pathogens that cause disease. We surface it on different levels. It turns out we don't know as a community what the thresholds for disease often are for a lot of pathogens. So we also compare it to the community of healthy soil to really help the grower understand what it means. And then on the right side is just a selection of soil health indices. We've actually come up with over 20 indices, obviously not all covered here, but some of the leading ones are around nitrogen cycling, the microbial groups that are responsible for nitrogen cycling, and also the disease pressures, fruit quality, crop quality, and so forth. And I'll go into some use cases of just two of these indices today. One of them is microbial diversity, highly profiled in academic literature to be involved in disease suppression. It's high microbial diversity typically indicates healthier soils. And what we've seen from our data is, for example, that when you have continuous cropping of the same crop, that microbial diversity lowers with increased cropping cycles. And so recommendations for low microbial diversity are composting, rotations, cover cropping, and folks can certainly test out the effects of existing products on the market on their microbial diversity. Another one that we're looking at is ratios of different groups of bacteria. In this case, the aerobic ratio, the aerobic population of bacteria. And it turns out that it's actually able to predict flooding in a way that was not provided to us. So we went to a grower and said, what is this weird patch here that has really low ratios? And it turns out they said, oh, yeah, that was in water for a long time. So, the biology is telling the truth. It doesn't lie. Sometimes samples are mixed and we can tell that it was mixed. If someone blinds it, we can often tell where the disease is coming from. So, I think a lot of these use cases are actually quite interesting. Here's another example where a grower, again, came to us with an unknown set of ranches, one with very low disease, not healthy, one bunch of healthy fields, and one that was sort of patchy and starting to really show decreased yields year after year. This particular one was lettuce, I believe. And so they just sent us a bunch of samples from each ranch and told us to test it. So we did, and what we did is, as I mentioned earlier, we started as a diagnostic panel company. So we've actually validated, QC'd all of these pathogens on this panel and other ones on the panel as well, to show that they're quantitative and linear and can be validated with other tests. And so we screened it for all of these pathogens, and it turns out that none of them were really that different from healthy and diseased, except for one, and that was Phytophthora. And so in this particular case, the disease ranch had very, very high levels of Phytophthora, and the patchy one, actually, they took some spots from the healthy parts and some spots from the diseased parts, and it was also Phytophthora. So it's interesting that Phytophthora is spreading on these ranches, and the follow-up recommendation would be to look at resistant cultivars or specific management techniques for Phytophthora. Now, normally, the existing tests out there, as you probably know, require either individual culture or PCR assays, often chasing down what the disease is. With this, with one screen, we're able to really nail down the candidate. And then finally, we don't have a lot of time to go into this, but as Nandini mentioned, we do have a lot of machine learning capabilities in-house, and we are building a lot of these indices, not just from a biological perspective, but also through data mining and looking at what's predictive of disease and what's predictive of soil health. Again, we respect the complexity of soil health, so we are very cognizant of that. But briefly, we've been able to profile some compost samples that folks send to us, healthy soil samples, and you can really see the diversity. There's so much information here, and we're just scratching the surface. So we're definitely looking for partners and field trials to test and really show the effects of some of our practices that are supposed to increase soil health and show the farmers that it actually is happening on their farm. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@tracegenomics.com or Diane at tracegenomics.com. And again, my partner and I will be here afterwards, so feel free to ask any other questions.